Right. So, what we discussed in the previous session about API and microservices, I think, right? So, microservices we have discussed. We discussed even about why and what microservices is all about. Why is it required? At the same time, how it is different from monolithic architecture. At the same time, we discussed about what are the characteristics, right? So principles, right? So that part we have discussed. So if from the context of BA, again repeating the same, having a knowledge over the importance of microservices when we are developing an architecture is becoming predominantly important nowadays for the BA role. This is nothing that I'm specifying. Being a BA, you will be a part of architect role. But for sure, understanding over the business architecture is important because in the last previous sessions, I discussed about the importance of business architecture. So we being a business analyst are focusing more on the business and functional side. So business architecture importance is needed and we need to have a complete command over the business architecture. But not from the solutions or enterprise point of view. But now and then, as in when we are moving towards the role of a technical BA, understanding about the microservices, when you are comparing with some monolithic architecture. So that part we have discussed in the previous session. Today, I'm going to discuss about few points. One is about the difference among architect roles, which predominantly we have in the field of IT. At the same time, we need to discuss about business process modeling followed by database. So based on the time availability we have. Now here you can see the one which I am showing you today about the difference among different architects, because in the last time even I told you there are different architect roles will be there in the field of IT. Some may be enterprise architects, some may be solution architect roles we'll see. Some people we call it as technical architects, application architects, data architects, cloud architects. Right? So there are a lot of roles, classification of architect roles are involved in the field of IT. So it doesn't mean architect is a role or a designation doesn't mean a person will be of the same, because architect may be of different shades. Some people may be cloud architects. For example, we are developing some cloud application. Person who wants to provide solution for the cloud environment for the customer requirement. So one should have a knowledge over the cloud part, understanding about the cloud services, right? So they must have a clear understanding over about the cloud part. So how the cloud architecture has to be designed, because what happened normally when we are developing a cloud application, for example, normally there will be two services. One is public cloud and second is a private cloud. Public cloud means whatever the space given by the cloud service provider, we are using it. Okay, so we don't require any private space as separate. So charges were very nominal, right? So charges were limited. But if you see some organizations, especially domain specific, healthcare, banking, insurance, they have large scale of data, which will be transformed from multiple applications and systems in regular intervals. Huge amount of data will be transferred. At the same time, protecting, right? So having security for those data by having some rules and regulations. They have their own regulatory standards, policies, and procedures, which has to be maintained and updated all the time. So hence, it is always important for them to have a private cloud services. Private cloud means application will be developed on the cloud environment, but private cloud services. Private cloud service means cloud service provider will appoint an exclusive team for cloud excluded team for that customer, right? So they provide cloud architect. So they design application, they design architecture exclusive for the customer needs. and space will be provided as separate. Private space will be provided so that they don't see any problem. Of course, cost will also be in premium side. So this is the complete scenario when you see cloud services all, right? So this is where generally cloud architects like this, technical architects, cloud architects, solution architects, enterprise architects, these sort of variations are there. End of the day, being a BA, we need to interact with every stakeholder. Of course, architects were also stakeholders. That's the reason why who do what. That detailed understanding is required. Hence, I'm explaining this to you. Three major architect roles I have taken, as I stated. One is about enterprise architect role, second solution architect, third is a technical architect, I can say. The first, when you see an enterprise architect should have a wide amount of knowledge over the technical side that is required. Because enterprise architecture, if you see, as I told you, combination of multiple things, combination of business architecture, combination of application systems, data, right? So everything were involved in that, right? So everything were incorporated in that. So whenever we try to understand about the enterprise architecture part, right? So when you're trying to understand about enterprise architecture part or enterprise architect role, individual should have a knowledge over the technology well, because which technology they are using, it is irrespective of it. Some people, they may go for Java as a programming, right? So full stack development, right? It's not only full stack, I mean to say everything, right? So they must be having command over the technology from the front end part, back end, middleware, right? So they should have a knowledge over the complete this thing, right? So this is where enterprise architect role, from the technical point of view. Next, when it comes to the solution architect role, solution architect should be a technical person normally, right? So because those people not belongs to the domain side, because domain is no way concerned to solution architect. It can be of any domain. It can be banking, it can be insurance, it can be supply chain, it can be retail, healthcare, it can be logistics, it can be of any domain. Solution architect is providing solutions for the project by understanding the non-functional requirements. They are providing solutions accordingly. So solution architects always come from the technical side, not from the domain side. And there is nothing to connect with domain. They are nowhere related to domain. And they don't involve in the domain side. Right? So they are not involving in the domain side. They'll be focusing more on the technical side of it. Next, when it comes to the technical architects, apart from the technical knowledge, they should have a knowledge of the particular domain which they are working for. Okay, point to be noted, because it's a combination. See, functional, technical is a combination. For example, we are developing a banking application for one of our customers, right? It's a banking solution. The person, whoever is developing a technical architecture, if the person is having a knowledge over the domain, it will be a more advantageous than not. Right? So if the person is having more domain expertise and all everything, it will be more advantageous. Otherwise, there won't be much advantages. Okay, so technical architects should have a knowledge over the domain, because domain specific, domain flow process, domain structure process, organization structure and business process. So that sort of understanding will give you an additional edge for a technical architect to develop technical architecture for the project along with the technical knowledge, etc. Okay, all that I'm saying, right? So this is the first difference. Second difference, when it comes to the enterprise architect focus more on the business strategy, right? So rather than apart from the technical skills, etc., all that, right? So enterprise architect is not a solution architect, right? So enterprise architect understanding the enterprise view, but technical knowledge is an add-on to that, right? So you should have. So enterprise architect always focusing on the business strategy. That's the reason why business architecture part of enterprise architecture. So whichever the frameworks they may be using, either it can be TOGAF, it can be Jackman framework, whichever the framework are they using. So focusing over the business architecture is one of the key and important aspect one enterprise architect must be good with, right? So they must have a focus over the business strategy. They must have a focus on the requirements, etc., etc. This is one thing. Next, when it comes to the role of a solution architect majorly focusing on bridging the gap between the business requirements to technical solution. That's the reason why, if you remember, as I told you, when we are going to develop the solution for the project, non-functional requirements we want. I mentioned that point, if you remember. Why non-functional requirements? Non-functional requirements will understand us to know about the characteristics of a particular business requirements, means how the business requirement has to perform. What should be the accuracy of the business requirement or a particular functionality, each and everything. Okay. So what must be the accuracy? Everything we have to know well. So then it is advantageous, then it is important, right? So that's the reason why bridging the gap between the requirements, business requirements, at the same time between the technological solutions and all, everything is one of the key and important element. It comes under solution architect roles. So solution architects are the people who will be focused more on bridging gap between business requirements, non-functional part, at the same time technical solution also. So that knowledge is required for a solution architect. Now, when it comes to the technical architects are the people focused more on the kind of technical solution anyway, because having a knowledge over the technology is one of the key element, because these technical architects will be again clubbed with solution architects, because solution is what architect will give. Whatever the technical guidance, everything will be provided by the technical architects in this regard. Okay, that's where generally all these implementations, etc., right? So what are the implementation are we focusing, right? So what are the implementation we are focusing on? Everything will be given by them well in advance. So technical solution is what generally the focus, wherein they wants to implement rather than apart from the domain skill or knowledge, right? So one has to be good with. Next difference, if you see from the enterprise architect point of view, enterprise architects, as I stated, right? So they need to have some business strategy, etc. So having a knowledge over the business strategy about the user needs or business requirements and all. So that will be helpful, because enterprise architecture combination of everything, business architect role will be involved in it, technical architect role will be involved, application architect, systems architect, every role will be involved in this regard. So that's the reason why this is one which, being an enterprise architect, one must be good with. Next, when it comes to the solution architect is the person who usually link between business strategy and technical solution, because wherein by understanding the gaps between business requirements and try to understand about the business requirements and all that. Business strategy and technical solutions, wherein we need to ensure whatever the business requirements and all that has to be considered by the solution architects well in advance. Next one about the technical architect role, as in when I mentioned earlier, right? So because technical architects are the technical people, end of the day, right? So they need to have that complete knowledge over the technology. So when they are going to meet the requirements, etc., all that. So these are the major ones which, being a business analyst, one has to understand about the differences, because being a BA, when we are interacting with stakeholders, because these are all comes under the stakeholders. So if there is anything relating to the solution perspective we are discussing, we'll be discussing with solution person, solution architects. If there is any clarification from the context of a whole enterprise, complete organization, I'm talking about enterprise, combination of everything. If you want to discuss anything relating to that stuff, so they discuss about with enterprise architects. Along with this, they discuss even with technical architects also, because knowledge over the technology. So knowing about the technology is also one of the key and important element to be focused more, right? So even technical architect role will also be included. So when we are required and when we are planning to discuss about the technical architect roles, even this is also one of the key and important element we have to be focused. So this differences, if you know, because see, this is not something mandatory as in when I am saying for every BA. But we never know what kind of expectations nowadays organizations may carry, right? So this may vary sometimes and they may require additional skill sets apart, which we have to be addressed effectively and have to be succeeded in that. So that's the reason why differences among enterprise architecture at the same time, difference among enterprise solution architect and technical architect roles is what something which being a BA you need to know, so that it is you get some more effectiveness when you're dealing with people, right? So your effectiveness will be more higher. So you made the right person for the right decision, because end of the day, ultimate point was that we have to meet the right person for the right decision is the ultimate motto. That is what something happens if you have a knowledge over the roles and responsibilities, what these people do, so that it will be more helpful to you. Is it clear, everyone? Bhavik, Gurpreet, Tanvir,
Yes.
and one more,
Yes.
I think. May I know your name, please? I think it was named of someone. Who is this, please? Anthony. Okay. Okay. Right. Okay. Fine. Right. So this is what generally the differences we need to understand from an enterprise architect, solution architect, and technical architect being a BA. So whatever we have covered so far, whatever we have discussed so far about microservices, architectural point of view is got something which was covered, right? So what are architects, right? Business architecture, enterprise, technology, solution, application. At the same time, microservices architecture, difference between monolithic and microservices, and the differences among enterprise solution and technical architect roles, right? So this is all something we have discussed so far.